Hi, and welcome to Berry Aftercare, the podcast. Tonight, we are going to talk about a question that I got from a listener. And I'm going to be trying to do a little bit more of that. So if you've got ideas about something you'd like me to talk about on the podcast, be sure to put that in the show notes or you can email me. All right. So the question, and I'm going to disguise the person as best I can, asks how they can explain to their husband, and this is a husband of not 10, not 20, not 30 years, but over 30 years. How do they explain to their husband of over 30 years to stop bringing her home what she referred to as bad choices of food? Now, obviously, this is a person who's had bariatric surgery or bariatric procedure, and she is struggling and says, I don't feel like he's coping with losing his eating buddy. The husband is apparently also overweight. He's got a lot of comorbidities, and they're looking for some suggestions. Can you relate to this situation? Do you have anybody in your life who seems to be consciously or subconsciously sabotaging your efforts or sabotaging your success? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And I titled this episode Sabotaging Partners and Other Well Meaning Meddlers. Now, I want to step back for just a minute and remind you that in the program Berry Aftercare, we have a word of the year, which is accountable. And every week we have words that are supporting our accountability. And this week, the word of the week is competent. So I'm going to mold the two here, meld the two, meld, bring the two together. I'm thinking that word is meld. I'm going to meld the competence and the topic of sabotage. So, are you competent, A, at recognizing when someone's sabotaging you? And B, if they are you competent at intervening so that the sabotaging can decrease or maybe stop altogether? Well, what do these words mean? All right, competent means you have the necessary ability, you have the knowledge, you have the skills to do something successfully. In the bariatric care program, we're looking at being accountable this year. And so the question that we're asking overall is, are you willing to note what you are or are not doing toward your goals? That's being accountable. I'm willing to say I'm doing these things and woohoo, look at me, I'm logging, I'm asking friends for help, or I'm not doing that. And I'm also willing to take responsibility for my lack of action. So competency fits in with accountability because do you have the skills to be accountable? Do you have the skills to be successful as a post-op? And when it comes to this particular podcast, the question is, do you have the skills? Do you have the ability? Do you have the knowledge to recognize saboteurs? And do you have the knowledge and skills to kind of intervene so that doesn't happen? Well, let's get on with this whole topic. We're going to talk about what does it even mean when someone sabotages you? And what are the reasons people do this? Also, how can we deal with others who are trying to sabotage us? And how, check this part out, it's important. How do we recognize when we're sabotaging someone else? Oh man, this is a big one because it's so easy, especially in the honeymoon period of your post op journey, to sit back and recognize that people may be attempting to sabotage you, which means to deliberately get in your way, deliberately damage what you're trying to do, deliberately obstruct something, get in your way so that you don't accomplish your goals. Well, that's not a very nice thing to do. But here's the reality, my friends, and we got to be honest with ourselves. We've got to be accountable to ourselves too. We have all engaged in sabotaging behavior toward other people in the past. So when we do this, it's important that while we're in the honeymoon, particularly, and we're feeling all good and we're so proud of all the efforts we're making, and we are just excited, as you should be. I'm not trying to say don't be excited about your accomplishments and your successes. Absolutely be excited about those things and celebrate them to the max. What it means is let's work on having some compassion for people who may be trying to interfere with our progress because we've been in their shoes at one time or another, whether we want to admit it or not. So it's not going to be about judging or condemning. It's going to be looking at this whole issue with compassion for ourselves and for others. So we mentioned what it means to sabotage. It's when people get in your way, they thwart your efforts. They, as in the example of our question, what do I do with this spouse who brings home what she referred to as bad choices of food when she, the post-op, is trying to do what she needs to do in order to get to her healthier life, her better quality of life? Because pretty much that's what people tell me they want after weight loss surgery. And of course, as soon as I get on a podcast, I'm going to sniffle and cough because, it's cold and flu season. And it's cold too outside. Anyway, so what are the reasons people are doing this? Why are they getting in my way? Why don't they want to see me succeed? Well, first of all, going along with that compassion theme, keep in mind that people may or may not be aware that they're sabotaging you. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they are not. Like if you think of Mean Girls, the movie Mean Girls, and there's a new one out too. I haven't seen either one of them, but in the Mean Girls movies, I understand that people are trying to sabotage other people. We've seen this in our personal lives when it comes to our weight loss. We've seen it professionally when people try to um, interfere, maybe with you getting a raise or being the one up for a promotion. And sadly, we see it a lot in our own homes. So, what's the reason that people in our own homes, the people who love us, and before surgery say, I'm your biggest supporter, I'm going to be there with you, I'm going to be there for you, like this woman's husband most likely did as well. And yet, after the surgery, lo and behold, there he is, bringing her these bad food choices that are not going to lead her to her goals. What do we do about that? Now, this husband and the people in your life may or may not be aware that they are getting in your way. So, part of it is, first of all, and that's not the case in this situation we were just describing, but some people may not actually support your goals. Think about when you made the decision to have bariatric surgery. Was everybody in your circle of friends supportive of you doing this? Most likely not. And some of them may have had what to them were really valid, logical reasons. So it wasn't like they were trying to talk you out of it because they're just jealous, which is what most people say in regard to sabotaging. And I'm going to kick that notion right out the window in a few minutes. But maybe they think it's not a good idea. So maybe they're genuinely saying, I, you do you, but I don't think it's a good idea. And these are my reasons. That's not necessarily sabotage. They just might not be on board with it. So not everybody's going to support your goals. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're sabotaging you. Another thing, not everybody's going to be interested in what we're interested in. And they just might not get it. So there may be people who don't support your decision to have weight loss surgery because they think, I just don't know why anybody would do that. And that in their mind, it just doesn't make sense. Currently, we're in January. It may not be January when you're listening to this episode, but when I'm recording it, it is January. And there are people around the country doing this dry January thing. And that means they're choosing not to drink any alcohol during January. They may have people in their life that just don't get it. They're like, well, why would you do that? I don't get it. Or a lot of churches will do fasting or they'll do Lent where people give something up as sort of a sacrifice, and it's a spiritual, meaningful thing to them. But other people are like, I don't get it. Why would you do that? So their questions or their inquiries or their doubtful statements or their, I just don't know why you would, I just don't get it. I don't know why you do that. It's not because they're trying to get in your way, but it's because they just don't get it. Maybe they think it's not worth the effort. I am a person of ridiculously high energy, and some of my good friends have much lower energy levels than I do. It's not a good thing either way or a bad thing either way. It's just our differences in our biology and in our backgrounds and in our goals. And it's not a you're good and I'm bad, or I'm bad and you're good kind of thing. It's just they don't understand why I would spend my free time doing podcasts or doing videos, or they just don't get it. They're like, oh God, I just want to sit and read a book, or I'm just going to, lay in my backyard on my swing. And that's okay from them. But when I think of that, I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I just don't understand laying around doing nothing, which to me, that's what it seems like. But to them, it's like, I'm taking good care of myself. I'm relaxing and I'm ditching out of the screen for just a minute because it's cold and flu season and I have a runny nose. And I don't think it's very polite to blow my nose in the camera. Okay, so there's that. Don't you love real life and real people? Anyway, you might not, but I am that. So people might just not understand or get it. It doesn't have to matter, but it makes it difficult if those people are living in your home and they don't get it and they're not supporting you. And we'll talk about what to do about that in just a minute. But if you do have people that are sabotaging you, what's going on with them? What are the reasons they would do that? If you love me, wouldn't you support me? If you care about me, if you care about my health, why wouldn't you do the things that would be helpful to me? Now, what I want you to do as I go through these reasons is I really want you to think about the people in your life who you think might be sabotaging you in some way, shape, or form, and how you may have engaged in these behaviors in the past. So sometimes when people do get in your way, chances are good they don't recognize their behaviors as such. They don't realize that that's what they're doing. So sometimes it's not a conscious thing, but other times, like the Mean Girls, it is an intentional thing. So we kind of got to look at this and think about the person in our life and maybe have some compassion for them. Like, what is going on with this person? And rather than, and this is what most of us jump into doing, we're going to make a judgmental statement about what's going on with them. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, the go to statement is, they're just jealous. I really have a pet peeve with that. And while it could be true, there are situations in which people sabotage out of jealousy. However, I prefer to think of it as insecurity. Let me explain more. All right, let's talk about these people. Again, maybe they don't agree with what you're saying. And think about this. Maybe they actually do have your best interest at heart. Think about the case of going out with somebody and the majority of your friends are telling you, listen, that guy or that woman is bad news. If I were you, I'd run fast in the other direction. And you're all indignant because you want what you want and you want that guy or that girl. And so you're like, why are you sabotaging me? And in reality, they may actually have your best interest in mind because we see things through different lenses. So, what I would do with that example is, you've heard me say this before. If 10 people tell you you have a tail, you might want to turn around and take a look. So if you've got a friend at school maybe telling you, I don't know about that person, they just seem a little shady and I'm a little worried, and you have somebody in your group of friends from your high school or college class, and you have a sister or a brother also telling you the same thing, and you have somebody who also knows this person in another group, somebody at the gym, all kind of giving you the same feedback, chances are they're not all trying to sabotage your happiness. Chances are that 10 people are telling you you have a tail, so you might want to give some thought to what they're saying. Now, let's say you've got 10 people saying, go for it. I think this is a great guy, but you've got one person saying, I don't know. I just don't think they're right for you. I'm worried about you. But you're not getting that sense from everybody else. There may be a chance that they're trying to sabotage you. And the main reason people attempt to sabotage you is because what you're doing in your life is somehow going to affect yours. So it's not a fair statement and it's not an okay thing to do to lump it all into they're just jealous. Let's look at the fact that this person is sabotaging me because, in some way, shape, or form, the changes in my life are going to affect the changes in theirs. I'll use myself as an example, and then I'll use your weight loss surgery as an example. When I decided to go into treatment when I was 29 years old, I was hanging around with some people who knew that I was going to be going into treatment. And they would say things like, well, I guess that's going to be the end of our hanging out together. And if you really cared about me, they didn't say this, but basically it was when you make these changes, in other words, you're not going to be drinking anymore. That's going to affect my life. And I'm not willing to give up the drinking. I'm not ready to give up the drinking, or I don't need to give up the drinking, whatever the case may be. But changes in my life meant I'm not going to the bars with you. I'm not going to the clubs with you. I'm not going to sit around on a Saturday evening with our families while the kids are playing and drink beer with you or drink wine with you or drink anything with you. So my choices were going to affect their lives. So let's talk about bariatric surgery and how your choices to get healthier physically, and to have a better quality of life that you have determined, that you've outlined, that you have made the definition of, the things that you want to do. How's that going to affect other people in your life? Well, let's talk about the woman who asked about this topic. Her husband, she noted, is overweight, has a lot of the comorbidities, and she suspects he's not too happy about losing his eating buddy. I suspect she's right. Does that make him have evil intentions toward her or not want that for her? No, I'm sure this man she's been married to for over 30 years loves her and wants the very best for her. He wants good health for her. He wants a good quality of life for her. However, whether he's willing or able to admit it consciously or unconsciously, he's aware at some level that he's losing his eating buddy. And so, again, probably not to intentionally undermine her, but so that his life doesn't change too much, he brings home these foods that are not a healthy part of her bariatric journey. So is it sabotage? Absolutely. Is it evil and undermining and with a horrible intention? Probably not. He might not He might be so absorbed in himself, not like he's a self-absorbed narcissist, but he probably has some fear going on there. Gosh, am I going to have to look at my own life? Am I going to have to look in the mirror? If she makes these changes and she starts, being much healthier and more active, maybe she's going to get busy and I'm not going to be able to do these things with her because I'm not capable. My weight precludes me from doing those things. So maybe this guy's got some fears going on. She's going to leave me behind. Maybe not divorce me, but she's going to be out there living, doing her thing. And I'm going to be stuck here in my chair because I can't do it with her. So does he think, I think I'll keep her from losing weight? No, he probably doesn't think that. But he thinks, well, maybe she could eat with me once in a while and I won't completely lose my eating buddy. And I just blew my nose on the camera and I'm so sorry. But I didn't really blow my nose. I just wiped it. It is cold and flu season. Did I mention that? Anyhow, I got the cold and not the flu. Thank you, Lord. Okay. So is this man intentionally trying to sabotage his wife? Probably not intentionally, and definitely probably not maliciously. Doesn't mean it's not happening, though. Where's it coming from? It's coming from looking at myself in the mirror and seeing that I got a lot of the same struggles going on that she had before surgery, and I don't know that I'm ready to give it up. Probably not a conscious thought, but the behavior is representing that. So maybe I'm not ready to change, or I don't want to change this. Definitely love you, definitely want what's best for you, but I don't want to change yet. So maybe they're trying to get you to go back to what you were doing because then they don't have to change or look at what's going on with them and their weight or face their fears about, maybe you're going to go out and do things and I'll be left behind. So husband is likely threatened in some way, probably feeling very insecure, probably their own fears have been triggered. And so what they do is what they know to do. Maybe they don't even know how to put this, remember the word competent. Maybe they don't have the skills or the ability to really put all of this together and say, honey, I'm happy for you that you're losing weight. I love that your health is improving. But I got to tell you, it scares me. It scares me because I have to look in the mirror and I have to see that my health is not good and it's because of my unhealthy eating. And, also, I'm kind of afraid that you're going to get busy and you're going to do things with your healthier friends and I'm going to be lonely and I'm going to feel left out. And the other thing is, I just don't think I'm ready or want to give up my unhealthy habits. How many of us, honestly, have the competency or the skills or the self-awareness or the self-knowledge to even put those things into a logical thought, much less describe them to someone else? So maybe you can have compassion and maybe you can look at maybe how you've done this in areas of your life. Maybe your spouse or your best friend all of a sudden decided they were going to get into some intense form of physical fitness and they started jogging or they started going to burn boot camp and they really fell in love with this and this became a way of life for them and you were feeling really left out because hardcore intensity interval training or hardcore boot camp type of thing is not your jam. And so you started to feel left out because they started to hang out with the people at their gym or their workout club and you were feeling left behind. So maybe what you did was invite them to go out to dinner a lot more often. Or maybe it involved a lot of, sedentary kinds of things rather than because you didn't want to do that. There's nothing wrong with your choice or their choice. They're just different. But how we feel about other people's choices or how other people feel about our choices can instigate some subconscious behavior that isn't real flattering. Because here's what happens a lot of times in bariatric world. Again, excuse me. But we have people in their honeymoon and doing really great in life, and we're feeling really good, and you're doing your thing. Like I was so much of a zealot after I first got into recovery, and I wanted to preach it to my family, and I wanted to get them involved, and I wanted this kind of life for everybody. And I just wanted everybody in the whole world to quit drinking because, wow, it really changed my life for the better. Not everybody in the world has a problem when they drink. I did. But I wanted everybody in the world to join me. And so sometimes when we get into our new way of life And it may be your new, bariatric lifestyle, and you're looking better and feeling better, and you're going around and you're talking about it and like, can you believe I wear this size now? And there's nothing wrong with that. You should celebrate. But the people in your home, the husband in this case, is like, that's great and that's exciting. And I feel worser and worser and worser about myself. They're not going to say that, but it may be happening. So have compassion. So when we get to what do you do about this? One of the things is don't be flaunting your success all over the place. Celebrate with like-minded people. It doesn't mean keep it from your family. It just means not talking about how many pounds you lost every single day for the first 2 years of your post-op life, because it can hit other people in a sore spot. It can, it can be a trigger for them. And think about your own self in the past. If you've had a friend when you were still carrying a lot of weight who lost a lot of weight, it may have affected you in some ways that made you feel insecure, or, triggered some of your own fears, or made you look in the mirror and go, oh, I wish I was doing that, but I'm not ready, or I'm not willing, or whatever it was. So be compassionate rather than just going, oh, they're just jealous. Maybe they are, but that jealousy is coming from a place of being hurt and fearful of losing the connection with you. When we change, our relationships with other people change. It's inevitable. When I went through treatment, the analogy that they gave us was that when you're in a family or a friend group, or just have a best friend, whatever it is, or your relationship with people at work, people have sort of like a mobile that hangs over a baby's crib, and it goes around and around and around. And the people at the office know who's going to jump in and take charge, and they know who's going to pull their extra weight, and they know who's going to be a little bit of a slacker, and everybody knows everybody's roles, right? Well, if all of a sudden somebody changes roles, like let's say the person who always jumped in and did the extra bit leaves and goes to another job, now that whole system is kind of thrown off balance. And it's like, well, who's going to step up and fill that role? And until things get balanced out again, all those pieces are changed. Same in a family. So in my family or my friend group, when I decided I'm going to be in recovery, no alcohol, no drugs, no mood altering substances, no mood altering behaviors, I'm going to learn to live life on life's terms. I'm going to learn how to deal with stress without using something to alter my mood. I'm going to learn how to deal with relationship problems by going to therapy or doing what I need to do, learning how to be a better version of myself, learning the skills, becoming more competent. So if you're doing that in your post-op life, what you've done is you've cut a string on the mobile and everything's off kilter now, because your kids are like, who is this person? Why is dad out at the gym all the time now? Or why is mom socializing with all these people? And why doesn't she need my help anymore? And I used to be her buddy, her helper. Now I don't have a role. And maybe the partner is, the husband in this case, was left behind, and the wife is out doing all these things and being more active. So people don't know how to find that balance again until something breaks badly and people get help, or people develop the competency and the skills to talk about what's happening. But every relationship in your life is going to change in some ways when you have weight loss surgery and you change your life. And some of those people are going to be, yeah, yeah, yeah. And they're going to be right there with you and really sincerely cheering you on. Others may be saying the words, but their own fears, their own feelings of being threatened, their own changes in their lives don't sit well with them, and they're not ready for them, or they don't want to make them. Those people may intentionally or unintentionally throw curveballs your way. And that's what sabotage is. So, what we want to do is we want to be compassionate. Most people who truly love us are not going to sabotage us intentionally. They may nonetheless sabotage us. How does that look? Well, in the case of the woman who asked this question, it was the husband bringing food home. And that is a big one, right? That's a blatant, obvious form of sabotage to somebody who's trying to lose weight and keep the weight off. But what about other kinds of sabotage? What might it look like? I had a woman tell me yesterday that, no, it was Saturday. She said when she went in to have her surgery, her father, who had been super critical of her all of her life, told her she would never find anybody to love or marry her because she was too big, told her she'd never accomplish anything, she'd never amount to anything. And it always amazes me because I think, does that really happen? But then I hear it over and over and over that people get those very, very blatant messages. They're not even concealed, they're overt. I mean, they're just told you're going to amount to nothing. I can't fathom that. But anyway, she said the day of her surgery, her father said to her, "What are you going to do when you gain all that weight back?" So sabotage can come in the form of words. Oh, yeah, you look good now, but. And most of you have experienced when you go home for the holidays, for example, doesn't look like that surgery did much good for you. Or, gee, it looks like you've gained some of that weight back. Or sabotage can also be in the other direction. When are you going to quit losing weight? You've lost too much weight. You're getting too skinny. That can also be a form of sabotage. In other words, I don't like how your weight loss is making me feel. Now, if you are actually getting too thin, and again, 10 people are telling you, maybe it's your doctor and your dietitian and people are telling you that, then maybe you need to look at it. But if it's just like one or two people saying it in a nasty way, what that tells me is something's not sitting well with them. Maybe they're now the heavy person in the family and they're not liking it. But rather than get mean and vindictive and snarky about it, try to have compassion. You've been there. I have been there. We have all been there when we have seen other people succeed and it triggers our own insecurities. And maybe we talk to other people about it. Maybe we talk about them behind their back. Maybe we poo-poo. Well, it's not that big of a promotion. We downplay their success. And so when we see people doing that regarding us, when you hear and see people doing that regarding your weight loss success, rather than getting angry or wanting to retaliate, have compassion and think, what's going on with them? How is our relationship threatened? How do they think our relationship is threatened by the changes taking place in my life? Because that is exactly what's going on. I hope you're not watching this video. Now I'm spitting out cough drops. No, this is just disgusting. Okay. But that's what sabotage looks like. So maybe they encourage you. Maybe you're on a path toward a promotion and you're tired and you're just like, oh God, this is really, really taxing. Well, why don't you just quit? Is it really worth it? Well, heck yeah, it's worth it. Before I went to get my PhD, and now mind you, this was 30 some years ago, and equality's come a long way, still got a long way to go. But I remember a guy saying to my husband before we moved, because we had to move from Iowa to Texas. That's where I went to school. So we're doing a huge upheaval. 3 kids. My husband had to, find a new job, but he was fully supportive of it. But he had a guy say to him, "Are you sure this is what you really want to do?" And it just really irritated me. So yeah, your initial response might be angry and irritation. But when I think back on that, I think, what was going on with that guy that this thing that my family, my husband, that we were doing was affecting him? Maybe it was he would never do something like that for his wife. Or maybe, he thought, the woman, who knows? I can't guess. I have no right to judge. I just know that that came from somewhere, and that somewhere was within him. So when people sabotage you, remember that behavior, that insecurity, that fear, that lack of willingness to change themselves is coming from them. So it's not about you. It's not about you. Don't take sabotaging personally. It's not about you. It's about the person doing the sabotaging. So try to have compassion. And remember, at some time in your life, you did it too. All right. So we're going to address this. How can we deal with others sabotaging us? And how can we recognize when we're doing it to others? So when it comes to yourself and to other people, again, I'm going to say have compassion. I'm going to tell you this little thing that I found in an article. So there was a study quoted in the book The Paradox of Choice, and it gave participants a hypothetical choice concerning status and asked for their preferences. So people were asked to choose between A, earning $50,000 a year with others earning 25. So you're going to earn 50,000, your other people in your circle are going to make 25,000. Or they could choose to earn twice as much, making $100,000 a year, but being surrounded by people earning $200,000. Which would you choose? Let me repeat it. So you can choose to earn $50,000 and everybody else around you is making 25,000. Or you can choose to earn 100,000, but everybody around you is making 200,000. Believe it or not, more than half the respondents chose the option that gave them the better relative position. In other words, they said, I'd rather earn the $50,000 because I'm going to be making more than other people. They didn't want to make less than other people, even though they would have been making more themselves. So people, human beings, human nature is hardwired to compare. It's who we compare ourselves to that can affect our happiness. So when you're in the bariatric losing stage, you're losing your weight, you're high on life, you're doing things you haven't done in forever or maybe never, you are excited, right? So you're pretty much the one on top here. Other people are watching you lose weight, and whatever's going on with them is going on with them. Or people who've had surgery out, 5 years ago and they're struggling with regain are watching. They're like, oh, I remember when I. So when you're in that honeymoon period and all is going well, you are on top of the world. So it's easy to look at other people and be like, psh, they're just jealous. Keep in mind, my friends, that at some point the honeymoon's over and the journey gets tough for almost everybody who's had weight loss surgery. It just gets tough because keeping weight off is a 24/7 proposition. It's an every time you eat decision making ordeal. It's a sticking with the bariatric basics, eating the protein first, eating it every 3 to 4 hours, getting that water in, not eating between meals, minimizing the processed food you eat, and it is for a lifetime. Not only that, in addition to the behavioral skills, there are the emotional skills. Do you have the competency to deal with stress without turning to food? Do you have the competency or the ability or the skills or the knowledge to do these things on your own, even if other people drop out of the game? Do you have the competency to stick with this even when the going gets tough? Are you taking accountability? Do you do the things it takes to track what you're doing? Because being accountable keeps you on top of the game. So are you doing? And there will come a time, and maybe you'll be looking at the people freshly out of surgery and going, oh, well, they're just in that honeymoon phase. Anybody can do that. See how the tables turn? When we're on what we perceive to be the lower end of the stick here, when we're struggling with regain and when we're struggling with whatever it might be, somebody else gets all A's in classes and we're struggling to get the C. It's like, oh, it just comes easy to them. I wish I was gifted with that. We make excuses for those kinds of things. So we are hardwired to compare. It's not a good thing to do, whether you're on the high end or the low end here, because your status compared to other people isn't even relevant. It has nothing to do with what you're doing, or it shouldn't have anything to do. You should be running your race in competition with yourself. All right. So now we know that many people are going to choose the option that they look superior to other people. Let's go a little bit deeper in understanding why this happens. From a psychological perspective, there's a term called cognitive dissonance, and you might not know what that means, but I'm going to tell you. It happens when we have two conflicting desires. Let's think husband, who's bringing the unhealthy foods to his wife, who's in her post-op journey. All right. So husband is like, I want to lose weight too. I want to be healthier too, but I don't want to quit eating. So there's my two opposing desires, right? I want to be healthier, but I want to keep eating like I want to eat. I want to be healthier and more fit, but I don't want to quit doing what I'm doing. That's dissonance. It's two desires, but they don't match up. So that causes us to be super, super uncomfortable, right? It's like, oh, what do I do? And even when you're going through a regain, it's like, I want to maintain that health. I want to maintain that weight loss, but I just want to eat what I want to eat like I used to. That's a conflict with two desires, and it's super, super uncomfortable. So husband who brings home the unhealthy food is only going to be able to get rid of that uncomfortable feeling by either doing what he needs to do to lose the weight or justify and rationalize what he's doing. Guess what we do? You do it, I do it, and this woman's husband is doing it. He's rationalizing. He's like, well, not everybody is, I don't have to lose that much weight. Not everybody has to be fit and trim. I could just eat what I want some of the time. So we rationalize it. And maybe she could just join me once in a while. It's not going to hurt her to do this just once in a while. So what it comes down to is for you and for the husband and for me, when we are caught between, I want to get a PhD, but I don't want to study, that's not going to work, right? Or I want a job promotion, but I don't want to do the extra work. Or I want to keep the weight off, but I don't want to hold myself accountable. Or I want to become a ballerina, but I don't want to go to dance lessons. We have these two things. So you'd either need to take action or you need to make yourself feel better by coming up with this convoluted thinking. So, all right. So when in your case, you chose, I'm going to take action. I'm going to lose weight. Now, this might cause your friends and family and coworkers to feel kind of uncomfortable. It's like, dang, you are looking great. And I wish I could look like that, but I don't have the discipline. Well, discipline is nice and wonderful, but it's not all about that. It's really about accountability. I'm not willing to take the measures I need to do and be accountable for my actions to get the result. And that makes me feel bad. So how am I going to get rid of this? So I'm going to do something to try to make some sense out of this. And it's going to sound convoluted, like a smoker. They're like, well, not everybody dies of smoking. Not everybody gets lung cancer. Not everybody. That's rationalizing unhealthy behavior. How many times have you, and do you still perhaps, rationalize your own unhealthy behavior. So, if the person, me, you, husband who's bringing home the unhealthy food, can't take charge of their own body or won't make the changes or decide they're not going to, then consciously or subconsciously, they're going to try to bring the person back to their level. And this happens a lot in drinking families. Let's say my husband was a big drinker, which he was not. But let's say I came home from my treatment program and he still drank a lot, or he would bring home my favorite alcohol because he doesn't want to change. So he wants to bring me back to where I was so he can stay comfortable in his life. Because if I continue not to drink, he's going to feel uncomfortable. Or if in this scenario with the husband who's bringing the unhealthy food home, when his wife continues to follow through with her healthy behaviors, he's feeling uncomfortable. So he's going to try to bring her back to a place where he feels comfortable. That's what sabotage is. It's about my own wants, my own needs. And let's face it, friends, we're all kind of about that because it's human nature. So we want what we want when we want it. But fighting human nature can be really, really hard. So when you can see what's going on around you and understand where that person's coming from, acknowledge it, but continue with your commitment to say, I can't do it for my husband. I can't do it for my child. I can't do it for my best friend, my sister, my mother, my coworker. As Mel Robbins says, nobody's coming. If you're going to make changes in your life, nobody's going to do it for you. And you also have to recognize that you can't let other people stop you with their words or their comments. You got to quit taking that stuff personally. You've got to learn to set the boundaries. If the husband brings the food home, say, I am not going to join you. You don't have to say, I know what you're doing. You're trying to sabotage me and it's not going to work. It's just going to cause conflict. But you can say, I would appreciate if you would show your affection for me in ways besides food. Why don't we go for a walk together? Or if you continue to bring these things home, I'm going to pour soap all over them and put them down the garbage disposal. You don't have to get mad. You don't have to get angry. Just look at it through a different lens, a lens of compassion rather than anger. So, how do you combat this? What do you do to maintain what you set out to do? Become healthier and live a better quality of life. So, here's what you do: you hold on to your why. Why did I choose to have this surgery? I wanted better health and I wanted better quality of life. I want to do more of what I want to do. Keep that front and center, realizing you've got to keep doing the behaviors and learn the skills to set those boundaries and to say no and to be competent enough to have the conversation with the saboteurs. So, what if you tried this little trick? What if every time somebody tried to sabotage you, instead of getting angry or whatever, you just say to yourself, bring it on, bring it on. Your attempt to sabotage me means I'm doing really, really well. How about that? This consistency stuff, this accountability, learning to be competent and learn the skills to follow through with what I say I'm going to do. This is good stuff. So recognize it as a sign that you're doing well as opposed to they're just jealous. And then have some answers ready for the questions you're going to get. Do you think you're losing too much weight? Or, why do you need to exercise all the time? Or why are you going out so much? I don't need to exercise every day. I choose to exercise more days of the week than not because it feels good to me. You know, um, why won't you just eat blank and blank and blank with me like we used to? Because if I do that, I will cause myself a setback and I choose to honor my commitment. All right. So come up with answers. You're losing too much weight. Oh, thank you for your observation. I'm going to talk to my doctor and I'll be sure to work on that with my doctor. Right. Or, why are you working so many hours? It's not like you're getting paid extra. Maybe you say something like, it's going to pay off for me because, you know, I have a commitment, others are recognizing that commitment, and I'm working toward a goal. So you don't have to defend, you just need to explain. This is why I'm doing it. You don't have to say, you could do it too if you want it. And follow your plan. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast episode, do it without a lot of hoopla. You don't have to go around telling everybody how much weight you lost today, what you fit into today, the compliments you got today. Savor those things, eat them up, share them with people who are in the same spot on their journey, not people that's going to hurt. Not that you're intentionally hurting them, but they're probably not intentionally hurting you either. They're probably feeling insecure. They're probably feeling scared about the changes in your relationship. So don't rub it in. It is like rubbing salt in somebody's wound. So go to people who are on the same journey as you are and share your excitement and enthusiasm with them because they get it. They want to celebrate with you. And we don't want to hurt the people we love, just like we don't want them hurting us. And then, even if the people in your home aren't doing the things that you would like them to do, like refusing to keep unhealthy food out of the house or, you know, make a plan. Make a plan. So if they continue to eat fried foods or, order in unhealthy foods, make sure you've got your protein, your veggies, your fruit, and stick to your plan. If they're not eating a healthy family dinner, you get your healthy family or your healthy personal foods out. That's on you. So do what you need to do. And then get solid support. Have people that you can go to and say, it really hurts my heart, but my husband's not supporting me. He says he's supporting me, but his actions don't line up with his words, and it hurts me. I'm sad. I would really like that. So have somebody you can talk to about that so you don't keep it in or you don't get passive aggressive with your spouse because that's not good either, or your family members. And do keep track of your accomplishments because when somebody is kind of dissing on you on a regular basis, it can kind of chip away at your confidence. So keep a list of what you are accomplishing so that you know, and absolutely get the affirmation from people who are working with you and appreciating what you're doing for yourself. And then if you don't have the competency or the skills, the knowledge to talk to people and have healthy, honest communication about what you observe going on, then get back and listen to the episodes on communication, assertive communication. Get online, read about assertive communication, get to a therapist yourself and or with your person that you're struggling with and talk it out. And as Michelle Obama says, think like the leader you are. If somebody's cruel to you or acts in a way, her words are, when someone is cruel or acts like a bully, we don't stoop to their level. When they go low, we go high. So don't be reactive. Don't meet energy. If somebody's being snarky with you, don't be snarky with them. If somebody's criticizing you, don't criticize them. Be the person you want to be. Be a kind, compassionate, determined, self, um, a self creator, creating for yourself what you want in your life. So that was a lot of information. Let me give you some take home messages, and then we're going to talk about what we'll be discussing next week on the podcast because another person wrote in about sabotage, but it was a little different spin on it. All right. And one that you may relate to even more than what we talked about tonight. So take home messages. If people are doing things that are sabotaging your journey, remember, it may or may not be intentional. It may be they're acting out their feelings, which is not right or healthy, but it shows that they're not competent enough to talk about what's really going on. They don't have the skills. You learn the skills you need so that you can talk honestly with them. And remember that when people do things that interfere with your goals, it's about them. It's not about you. Refuse to take those things personally and refuse to beat them over the head with it. Just recognize it. If you have the skills of good assertive communication, honey, it seems like, whether you know it or not or are trying to not, when you bring that food into the house, it's a setup for failure for me, and I would appreciate if you wouldn't do it. If you've got the communicative skills, use them in a healthy way. Not to say, "What the heck are you doing? Are you trying to get in my way? Are you trying to sabotage me? Are you jealous?" That's not gonna get anywhere, but that's what most of us know. That's not competency. That's not accountability. So, remember, if you start to change what you're doing and it's affecting somebody else's life, it's gonna make them uncomfortable. So, if you change what you're doing to accommodate them, okay, I'll eat that with them, it won't hurt. You're both going to lose. You're going to lose because you're giving up on your own goals or maybe delaying reaching them. And they're going to lose because on some level, you're probably going to resent them and you're going to blame them for choices you made to give in. So, here's what I want you to do. Listen to this podcast as often as you need to. Encourage the people in your life to listen to this podcast, and maybe you can have a good conversation about it. And then when you think others are sabotaging you, talk to other people and say, do you think they're sabotaging me, or am I just taking this overly personal? Get some input from people you trust. And then if you want, learn the skills to talk to the other person. Keep in mind, my friends, we're talking about your health. It's your responsibility. Whether or not people are attempting to set you back, it's your journey, and your responsibility is to be accountable. Own what you're doing. Become more competent. Learn what you need to do so that you can be more accountable. It's your health, your responsibility this day and every day. Be sure to join us next week when we talk about a big problem for all of us in a lot of areas of our life. Self-sabotage. Self-sabotage. You know it. You've been there. You do it. You've done it. Let's talk about what it looks like and how you can overcome it. I'll see you next time, and thanks for spending your time with me, friends. Please leave feedback. Give me comments on what you'd like me to talk about. And forgive me for the sniffles and the cold and not the flu. I don't have that. But take care of yourself. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.